Good afternoon. My name is Elaine Hensley, and today I'm going to talk to you about the psychology of managing in a virtual work setting. And we're going to talk about some things that are not commonly discussed, and we'll discuss it from a biblical point of view, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. So, to begin, work from home is normally a dream come true for most people, you'd think. If you can handle it, if you're not working with patients or doing construction or something like that. But for the general population that can work on a computer all day long, working from home is ideal. But it does come with some problems and some situations that we as managers need to expect, for one thing, and also come up with some protocols and some coping mechanisms of what we're going to do about it and how we're going to help the teams. So, to begin, there are several aspects of virtual work, and the big umbrella over the entire thing is communication. So we all know now that communication is vital. We need to be clear, and we need to have clarity of what we say. We need to say what we mean and mean what we say, but have empathy along the way. So with that said, there are technological issues that come up: hardware, software, applications, email problems. And as managers, you need to have some type of technical training. You have to be tech support, and you have to be able to talk your team through, basic level one, level two troubleshooting technical problems that arise. So if you have a book or a class or a YouTube video or uh, a little notebook of protocols of what to do when these things happen, that would be extremely helpful. I have often had a notebook for handling different problems that come up, and people have offered to buy that notebook from me because it's very valuable. Anyway, it just goes step by step on what to do if you have this issue. So I would encourage you to have one of those to handle um, common technical problems. And then the other thing is the employee. So on the team side, they're using different applications. They're multitasking, toggling between screens, and time management is another big, maybe number two problem. So communication would be number one, and time management and scheduling would be number two when it comes to virtual work settings. So we'll talk about that. And there are also psycho-emotional problems that happen, such as depression and anxiety from working in an isolated environment, being separated from everyone else. And then, does virtual work contribute to tech addiction, and how much technostress is out there when you're on an island by yourself, alone, working in a virtual setting? And there are also musculoskeletal problems that come up with these things too, because you're sitting down not moving all day long. So before, you had to actually get up and get out of the house driving, and you had to walk through the parking lot, down the hallway. You had to walk down the hallway to go use the restroom, and maybe down a couple of hallways to go pour some coffee. So you're getting a lot more exercise than you are walking 10 feet to the coffee pot in the house. 20 feet, whatever it is. It's not that far. So there are some musculoskeletal issues that they have found to contribute. So you have bone loss and muscle loss. You have increased inflammation, especially when you're typing and using a mouse all day. So there's a lot of muscle tension and inflammation buildup that happens, contributing to diagnoses and problems like carpal tunnel. And then you have muscle and joint pain from sitting down all day. If you have arthritis, that could be an issue. And you have eye problems, eye strain, lack of blinking, and other things that all need to be taken into consideration when you're managing your teams, because it's all going to come up. The Christian worldview in this is that we need to keep our eyes focused on God. And every day we must advance the gospel and advance His word, and be not afraid and be not deceived. And professionally, we have to we have a fiduciary responsibility to the corporation and to our teams to make sure they have what they need and to put in 8 hours for 8 hours of pay and to live to work ethically and with Christian values. So there is professional Christian ethics are involved. And when we talk about virtual support, there is the haves and the have-nots. So the haves are the perceived organizational supports, and the have-nots are no support or a very limited support. So if you just dump everything in a box in a corporate office and tell the people, take this home, set it up, and be online at 8 o'clock in the morning, they're going to have some issues. But if you say, make sure I've labeled each thing, step 1, step 2, and how you put this together, and how you sign on, and you have all the same passwords, and this is not going to use any additional electricity in your home. If you give them the support and the clear instructions and good communication, and they feel that they can reach out to you if they have a problem, then you're going to get much better cooperation and results. So very little support will make the people feel like they have a lot of pressure to go home and set all this stuff up and be on these calls and learn how to use these new applications they've never used before. They have irregular hours because they're afraid you're watching them all the time, and they're afraid to get up and make a pot of coffee. They're afraid to go answer the door if somebody's there. Normal things that you take for granted that you do when you're in the office, and it's no problem. But when you're home and you feel like all eyes are on you, monitoring how much time you're away from your computer, then you have a lot of stress and you feel like you need to work additional hours to compensate for that. Whereas if you were in the office, it wouldn't be a big deal. And then there are excessive job demands. So a lot of times companies will feel that they can put more on the employees just for those reasons, because they're answering the doors, they're doing laundry, the kids want attention, the dog wants attention, their deliveries, their maintenance and service people who show up. So they give them excess responsibilities, but for the people who are not doing those things and they can have quiet time, they're just overwhelmed with the amount of extra work, if there is some. So with perceived organizational support, there are high levels of engagement, lots of communication, lots of clear, direct communication with the managers and with different people on the team, so you can get what you need when you need it. And there's flexible but regular hours. You can certainly um, talk about those things, and it's not a bad conversation. You just want to talk about those things. I know that you're home, and I know these things are going to come up, but we want 8 hours to pay for 8 hours of work. And then you gave them achievable work goals, and if it's too much, they need to be able to partner up with someone to get the work done, or they need to reach out and say, I'm a little overwhelmed. So that is support, the kind of support we're looking for. When managing virtual employees, again, we're talking about communication and time management and the workload primarily. So with time management, there's another aspect of that is problematic internet use. So are the people looking at their phone all day long? Are they expecting calls, expecting social media, expecting doctors' offices, follow-up calls? And then even not, when they're off the clock, they're on the phone, they're on the TV. They often will sleep with the TV or the phone running on a program, and they're not getting enough sleep, which will affect their job performance the next day. So there should be a short conversation on getting out and socializing, getting fresh air, and going to bed at a certain time, because you certainly don't want them sitting in the office all day long trying to work, or staying up late, not getting enough sleep. Compulsive internet use is also a type of addiction. So we're talking about loss of impulse control. And then the work-life balance, it needs to just be 8 hours if it's been 8 hours, so that they can have the work-life work-family balance, and they can participate in family activities and family chores the way their family is expecting them to. So it's all consideration. Positive work management would be that you want to create an environment that has a lot of positivity and a lot of energy, a lot of good energy to it. Energy meaning I feel energized. I feel like I don't feel exhausted. I want to be here. I'm ready to go, and I have the energy to accomplish whatever it is that happens today. So that's what I mean by energy. And when you have a lot of communication and you have that support, people have more confidence, more autonomy, and they feel more competent to do the job that they need to do. So training and communication are vital. And then there are positive effects of a little bit of virtual stress. So a little bit of stress is positive because it makes people work faster. It kind of shakes them up a little bit. Say, oh, now I have a new expectation. So let me just kind of uh, pump this out a little bit. Let me work a little faster. Let me be more productive right now to get this handled. So they're good. They end up being good multitaskers when in the office they weren't good at it at all. And they end up having more productivity. And we learned all these from studies during the COVID-19 research um, investigations. So that's a lot of what the study showed. From a Christian worldview, we want to handle stress and work-related problems from a biblical worldview. And what that looks like is about um, using, meditating on the Bible, focusing on God's word on how to handle your problems, not being anxious. The Bible speaks about not being anxious and having no fear multiple times. And even there's a quote down at the bottom of this page, be anxious for nothing. So hand it over to God and trust that He's already handling it before you even bring it up in conversation because He loves us. So with coping mechanisms and with therapies from a Christian worldview, we want to focus on what they call Christian mindfulness. And Christian mindfulness is kind of a derivative from mindfulness, and which is used by the APA and is supported by the AMA, mindfulness. And but it's rooted in Buddhism, and I don't think many people realize that. And they incorporate things like um, virtualization, visualization, meditation, deep breathing, which don't sound like bad things. They sound like they could be very helpful. You just have to be careful and realize that's not rooted in biblical practices. What you can do are focus on God's creation. You can do visualizations to relax the different muscle groups. You can meditate, but meditate on scripture. You can do other things like appreciate the changing of the seasons, the sky, the clouds, the rain, the sun, those types of things. So we want to really approach mindfulness from a Christian point of view. There's not a lot of research on Christian mindfulness, but there is quite a bit of it on mindfulness. And I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but there's a difference. And then the musculoskeletal issues. So I deal with this all day long, speaking of Christian principles. I practice acupuncture and Oriental medicine, but in my defense, I started studying that before I had saving faith. And now that I do have saving faith, I'm studying something else. But acupuncture is quite useful for musculoskeletal pain. I have been very impressed on the results I've gotten. So there are musculoskeletal issues that come up with you're working on a computer all day long, such as poor posture, which I have right now. But I'm leaning over the desk and I have my face in the computer and I'm trying to talk to you and trying to read the screen at the same time. So my posture tends to be a little bit more rounded and a little bit more forward. But over time, that can cause muscle tension, muscle strain, and skeletal changes, which I don't want. And also, when you're typing all day and using a mouse all day, you have muscles in your arms and hands that tend to um, become more tense, and they get inflamed. So we have to address the musculoskeletal issues that come up in the workplace. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at workers' compensation claims, and then they're going to come see me for acupuncture. And so it's important to look up from the computer, roll your head around, do head rolls, roll your shoulders back, do shoulder rolls backwards and forwards. All the basic calisthenics we did in elementary school. And that's going to keep the body, the blood moving freely, and the muscles keeping from tightening up and tensing up so much. So those are very important things. Heat and massage are certainly helpful for things like that. And exercising and stretching. Throughout the day, not just after work, but throughout the day, because you're sitting in front of your computer 8 to 10 hours a day. So, and let's talk about tech addiction. So all of this work, all of this focus on a 15-inch screen, your eye focused, your attention's focused on a 15 or so inch screen all day long. And so that makes it changes the way you see the world. All of a sudden you look up and there's a whole big world around you. You don't know what to do with it. And tech addiction, you feel more comfortable over time with a screen in front of your face rather than being wide out in the open environment. And also you're expecting things. You're expecting emails and phone calls. You're expecting likes and dislikes and comments from posts and channels and videos and things. So it becomes a real problem when you have an expectation and when you're constantly engaging with these types of applications. So tech addiction is a lack of self-control. It's attachment issues. It comes from high use, and it has negative consequences, and especially it can impact job performance. I can't tell you that the number of times I walk in a room and the patient's on their phone. I can't get them off their phone. And they'll talk on the phone right in front of me. They don't apologize for it, and they don't think it's rude. So it's a big problem. And I just look at them like they're crazy and say, when you're ready, I'll be back. But people have to stay off their phones when they're in public and in front of other people. It's a pet peeve of mine. Anyway, tech addiction causes eye strain and sleep disturbances and musculoskeletal changes, which we already went over, and withdrawal symptoms like anxiety and depression, like I said before, and attention issues. You're so used to getting immediate responses that patience, and they say patience is a virtue. Now we understand why that is a phrase, especially today, because people do not have patience for anything. And technostress. Now, I've done a lot of research on technostress, so I'm using it as part of my dissertation. So I can tell you everything about technostress. It was coined in the 80s by Craig Broad, and it's a disease of adaptation. So as these new applications are coming in, all these new hardwares, the virtual reality glasses, and the phone now is a pair of glasses that you can wear. We have to learn all of these new applications. When Microsoft came out with Word and Excel, we had to learn those applications. There were classes, college classes on that. And that can be quite stressful, especially when you get a job and you have to use some of these applications. Or you have to get applications that you've never used before, like Microsoft Teams or SPSS. How difficult was that to learn to use? And so you have that kind of stress. And then the technology, the problem is the technology keeps changing. So you have to keep relearning it. So that's the other side of technostress. And technostress symptoms are the same as regular stress symptoms. So you have all of those listed there. Long-term technostress can increase burnout and cause emotional exhaustion and interfere with work-life balance. So technostress, these problems like technostress and tech addiction are not widely talked about right now, but they will be, because this is only going to get worse, especially with the introduction of AI. So this is, as managers, we need to recognize that these are issues and come up with a protocol for encouraging the teens to step away from the computer, to take care of themselves, to have coping mechanisms in place to prevent problems down the future, down the line. So in Christianity, my personal theory is that TV, internet, radio, phones, AI, robots are all a distraction. It's a distraction to pull us away from God's word and to pull us away from God. And that's kind of why it was designed. And yet, when you read Revelation, Revelation talks about the false prophet telling the people to make an image unto the beast, and he had the power to make the beast speak. I didn't put it on my slide, but that sounds like AI and robots to me. So probably the reason why God allows us to invent these things is because we need it at the end. God knows from the beginning from the end. We need it at the end to explain, to have the things in place to cause the things that are happening in Revelation, like Isaiah 17 that talks about Damascus being destroyed overnight and it will never be inhabited again. That sounds like a nuclear weapon, and it's referenced in a couple of places in Revelation. So this technology is not going anywhere anytime soon. So we have to, and there's already replacement philosophy. Now we know about replacement theology and what they call the name it and claim it people and then different denominations of Christianity that deny the gospel and have other problems. But now there's replacement philosophy of all religion is a myth and the real religion is humanism or it's dataism, or you should just put your faith in these coping mechanisms. So be aware of that, and also artificial moral advisors are standing by waiting for your call. So if you like ChatGPT and if you don't like Ouija boards but you do like ChatGPT, tell me the difference. And gaps in the literature have to do with Christian mindfulness. Everything Christian is lacking in the literature. So I think approaching some of these topics from a Christian worldview is very important. And there are also few studies on biomarkers to measure technostress and tech addiction and all that stuff. So normally we would check just blood pressure and heart rate, look at the coloring, look at their eyes, physical things that you can just kind of measure quickly and kind of feel where the person is, psychologically. So you can look at people sometimes and tell if they're nervous or not. And just like you can tell your children are lying just by looking at them. So, but there are not very many biomarkers that we can quickly measure to assess these things. So that is needed. And then we're missing longitudinal studies. So a lot of these studies were conducted over weeks or months and not necessarily over years. And so to conclude, the purpose of this study is to further the conversation on virtual management issues, virtual issues in general with technology, the psycho-emotional side of technology issues that are not necessarily mainstream conversations, and explores the utilization of Christian therapies, Christian mindfulness as a coping mechanism for technostress and tech addiction, and it contributes to the field of industrial and organizational psychology by recognizing the role of faith and spirituality in well-being. So we don't have to, if you're not going to give them the gospel, at least talk about their well-being and how some of these biblical principles are beneficial for their health and long-term longevity. So that's all I really had today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Here are my references. And I used the 6 references from the annotated bibliography, but I used a lot more references to make my point because like I said, I've done a lot of research on technostress and tech addiction. Well, and some of these other problems, and then trying to get it from a Christian point of view. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I wish you a blessed weekend, and look forward to hearing your responses and feedback. Thank you. Bye.